The bullet missed by 3.2 inches. The rookie was declared washed up before noon. At Fort Bragg's most elite sniper training facility, 23 candidates watched as Sophia Chen lowered her $50,000 Snipex rifle. The petite blonde recruit had just failed the simplest shot of the morning, 3.2 inches off center at just 400 meters. For civilians, it would be impressive. For elite training, it was unacceptable. Whispers rippled through the observation deck. Another diversity hire crashing out. Another civilian who thought she could play soldier. The instructors exchanged knowing glances. 3 days into the 16-week program, and she was already marked for dismissal. But something felt wrong about this picture. The way she held the weapon spoke of intimacy, not inexperience. Her breathing remained steady while others would have cracked. Petrov circled her like a drill instructor's nightmare. Complete training? You can't even complete basic marksmanship. Tell me, Chen, what participation trophies did you collect to earn your spot? The attack escalated quickly. Petrov ordered her to the front, demanding she demonstrate basic rifle assembly while the entire class watched. His commentary grew more vicious with each component she touched. Notice how she handles the bolt assembly, like she's afraid it might break. This is what happens when we lower standards, when we prioritize diversity over capability. Sophia's hands wanted to move with the fluid expertise of 10,000 hours of practice, but she forced them to fumble slightly, maintaining her cover while her pride screamed. Perhaps you should try yoga classes instead of sniper school, Petrov concluded. Less chance of embarrassing yourself. Just like my sister should have done before she destroyed her life trying to be something she wasn't. Sergeant Williams shifted uncomfortably near the door. Something was off about Chen's response. Most candidates would have cracked by now, shown anger or shame, but she studied Petrov with the same intensity she'd use for wind patterns. Calculating, learning. When Petrov demanded an immediate shooting demonstration to prove she belonged, Sophia simply nodded. Yes, sir. Inside, she made a decision. The Pentagon wanted data on bias. She'd give them something worth analyzing. The entire class moved to the 800-meter range. Crosswinds gusted at 12 miles per hour, enough to challenge even experienced shooters. Petrov handed her a standard M24, not the advanced Snipex she'd failed with yesterday. One chance, Chen. Miss, and you're on the next transport home. The other candidates formed a semicircle behind the firing line. Some watched with sympathy. Most waited for the inevitable failure. Sophia approached the rifle with movements that made Williams step closer. The way she checked the weapon wasn't textbook military. It was something older, more intimate, like greeting a longtime friend. She settled into position, her breathing dropping into a rhythm that seemed to slow time itself. Through her scope, the target wavered in the morning heat. 800 meters of opportunity or humiliation. She deliberately shifted her aim slightly right, calculating a 9.7 hit that would seem like failure to Petrov, but reveal competence to anyone truly watching. She fired. The shot cracked across the range, followed by silence. Then the spotting scope operator called it. 9.7 ring. Not perfect, not center, but only 0.3 of an inch from her intended impact point. Petrov's face split into a satisfied smirk as he pulled out his tablet to begin dismissal paperwork. As expected. Chen, you're officially... Permission to adjust for equipment variance, sir. Sophia's voice carried no emotion, just professional request. Inside, her breaking point had arrived. Weeks of planned failure, of hiding ability, of enduring humiliation for data collection. Enough. Petrov paused, his stylus hovering over the screen. The request was legitimate. Different rifles shot differently, but giving her another chance meant risking his certainty. Granted, he said, expecting to savor her second failure. Sophia made minute adjustments to the scope, her fingers moving with surgical precision. Williams noticed she'd pulled something from her wrist, a small device that flickered with data. She settled back into position. This time, no more games. Breathed. Fired. Center mass, the spotter called. Dead center. Before anyone could react, she fired again. Same hole. Repeat. Shooter has doubled the same hole. The range went silent. 800 meters. 2 bullets through the same point. Probability defied. Petrov's tablet clattered against his leg as his arm dropped. The other candidates exchanged glances that mixed disbelief with dawning respect. Williams stepped up to the spotting scope, needing to see for himself. The group was impossibly tight. 0.3 of an inch at 800 meters. What would you do in Sophia's position? Continue hiding your true ability or reveal the expertise that could change everything? What happened next would force everyone to question everything they thought they knew about talent. The 1,200-meter target looked like a postage stamp through the scope. Wind gusted at 15 miles per hour, creating invisible corridors of deflection between Sophia and her objective. Every sniper in the program knew this distance separated the qualified from the exceptional. Petrov stood behind her, arms crossed, waiting for physics to prove him right. His mind raced with memories of Maria, his sister, failing at simpler tasks before washing out. The other candidates formed a tight line along the observation area, their morning training forgotten. Sophia's first shot drifted right, catching the 8.9 ring. Petrov's laugh was sharp and satisfied. There it is. The real Chen shows herself, just like all the others who don't belong here. He turned to address the class, ready to deliver a lesson about maintaining standards, but Sophia's voice cut through his sermon. Requesting second attempt, sir. Wind gust affected trajectory. The range flags confirmed it. A sudden crosswind had kicked up mid-shot. Petrov's jaw tightened. Protocol allowed for environmental corrections. His sister had never gotten a second chance. This time, Sophia pulled out her wrist device openly, inputting data with practiced efficiency. Something inside her had snapped during the 800-meter shots. The mission parameters be damned. She was tired of failing on purpose, tired of hiding who she was, tired of being a data point in someone else's experiment. Williams recognized her expression, the moment when a soldier stops following orders and starts following instinct. She adjusted her position microscopically, reading the wind patterns like sheet music. The range fell silent. Even the birds seemed to pause. She fired. The spotter's voice cracked with disbelief. Center mass. Perfect center. Petrov's hand shook as he demanded equipment inspection. The rifle was standard issue. The ammunition came from the same lot everyone used. No modifications, no tricks. Just impossible precision from a rookie who'd failed yesterday's basic qualification. 1,800 meters, Petrov declared, his voice carrying an edge of desperation. Let's see how far your luck extends. His sister's face flashed in his mind. She'd never made it past 600 meters. 1,800 pushed beyond standard training parameters. It required understanding of ballistics most soldiers never achieved. Sophia accepted the challenge without hesitation, moving to the extended range position. Her software calculated trajectories the military tables couldn't touch. She took 12 minutes to prepare the shot, no longer caring about maintaining her cover. The Pentagon wanted to test bias in the system. She'd show them what bias had been hiding. When she fired, the bullet flew for 4.2 seconds before impact. Hit, the spotter confirmed. 0.2 inch off center. Colonel Hayes called an emergency meeting within the hour. The base commander's office filled with tension as Petrov laid out his suspicions. Cheating, equipment tampering, something to explain the impossible. Hayes ordered an immediate background check on their mysterious rookie. What came back changed everything. Sophia Chen wasn't just a civilian with a rifle hobby. At 16, she'd won her first national junior championship. By 18, she held records at distances most military snipers never attempted. 2,100 meters, 2,800, 3,200, 47 consecutive civilian competition wins. Her coaches included Olympic gold medalists and former special operations legends. She'd logged over 10,000 documented hours of practice before ever setting foot on military ground. The revelation went deeper. Her ballistics software had revolutionized civilian long-range shooting. The Pentagon had specifically recruited her for an experimental program, testing whether elite civilian talent could bypass traditional military pipelines. They'd ordered her to underperform, to gather data on instructor bias and systemic barriers. The program was classified, hidden even from training staff. Colonel Hayes summoned Sophia to a private meeting. She sat across from him, no longer trying to hide her capability. Her eyes were red-rimmed, the weight of weeks of deliberate failure showing. "You broke protocol," Hayes said. It wasn't a question. Sophia nodded. "I couldn't do it anymore." Most curious of all was her reaction to the public humiliation. No tears, no excuses, just a quiet adjustment of her scope and a barely visible tremble in her trigger finger. But what they didn't know about Sophia Chen would change everything in exactly 47 minutes. Fort Bragg's Advanced Marksmanship Academy stretched across 15,000 acres of North Carolina wilderness. This wasn't just another military training ground. It was where America forged its most lethal long-range assets. The facility boasted ranges extending to 4 kilometers, wind tunnels for ballistics testing, and equipment worth more than most people's homes. Only 3% of candidates would ever graduate. The rest would wash out, their $2 million training investment written off as acceptable loss. Sophia Chen didn't look like she belonged here. Pretending to fail, watching them dismiss me, feeling their contempt. It was destroying something inside me. My grandfather taught me to shoot with pride. This mission made me ashamed of my gift. Hayes leaned back, studying her. The data we needed was about their reaction to failure, not success. Her answer was simple but fierce. Then the experiment was flawed from the start. You can't measure bias by reinforcing it. When Petrov learned the truth, something inside him shattered. He'd attacked one of America's most gifted markswomen, called her a diversity hire, tried to destroy her career. The woman he'd dismissed could outshoot every instructor on base, but worse, he'd projected his sister's failure onto someone who'd succeeded where Maria couldn't. His entire worldview, built on protecting standards he thought had failed his family, crumbled in minutes. He found Sophia at the range that evening, practicing shots that made his best efforts look amateur. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out more broken than angry. Sophia lowered her rifle, considering her response. "Would it have mattered? You'd already decided what I was the moment you saw me. Blonde, civilian, female, everything your sister was." The mention of Maria hit like a physical blow. Petrov staggered. "How do you—" Sophia's voice softened. "Colonel Hayes told me. About Maria. About why you hate candidates like me." The truth stung worse than any reprimand. Petrov had judged her on appearance, on background, on everything except ability. His identity as the Hammer, the instructor who protected standards, revealed itself as a man trying to justify his sister's failure by ensuring others failed too. He sank onto a shooting bench, head in his hands. Maria was brilliant, kind. She wanted to serve so badly. The system broke her in 6 weeks. I thought if I made the training harder, if I weeded out the weak early, I could save others from her fate. Sophia sat beside him, the enemy who'd become a mirror. "Your sister didn't fail because she was weak. She failed because the system only recognized one type of strength. That's what this experiment was supposed to prove." The revelation transformed Petrov's grief into understanding. He'd spent years perpetuating the very system that had destroyed his sister, convincing himself that brutality equaled standards, that breaking people proved their unworthiness rather than the system's flaws. Should she take the easy path of special treatment, or prove that integration was possible through standard channels? Her decision would shock everyone more than her shooting ever could. Sophia stood before Colonel Hayes and the assembled command staff, her decision clear and unwavering. "I'll complete the standard program. No special treatment, no modifications." The room erupted in protests. Why waste her talent on basic drills? Hayes silenced them with a raised hand. "If I can't earn respect through the same path as everyone else," Sophia continued, "then I don't deserve to be here. And neither does the next civilian recruit who won't have my advantages." Her choice meant 16 more weeks of training, including advanced phases that would pair her with the very instructor who'd tried to destroy her. The assignment came down that afternoon. Advanced reconnaissance simulation, 72 hours in mountain terrain. Sophia Chen and Derek Petrov would function as sniper and spotter, their careers now intertwined by military protocol. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who'd called her a diversity hire would now depend on her for mission success. Pentagon officials would monitor every moment, using their performance to decide the program's future. Their first training session crackled with tension. Petrov struggled with his reversed role, watching Sophia handle equipment he'd thought beyond her capability. But now he saw her movements differently. Where he'd once seen civilian sloppiness, he recognized economy of motion. Where he'd criticized her stance as too relaxed, he understood the natural stability that came from 10,000 hours of practice. "I need to tell you about Maria," he said suddenly during a break. "Why I became who I became." Sophia set down her rifle, giving him space to speak. The story poured out. Maria Petrov, brilliant and determined, entering military training at 21. The instructors who'd broken her spirit in the name of standards. The depression that followed. The attempted suicide. The years of recovery that never quite brought back the sister he'd known. "I thought if I was hard enough I could prevent others from suffering like she did. Instead, I became the monster she faced." His voice broke completely. "I've spent 5 years destroying people like you to justify why she couldn't make it." The vulnerability changed their dynamic completely. Sophia began showing him her ballistic software, explaining how civilian competitive shooting had evolved beyond military doctrine in some areas. But more importantly, she showed him a different way to teach. Your sister didn't fail, Derek. The system failed her. We can change that system, but not by breaking people, by building them up, by recognizing that strength comes in forms we haven't imagined. Petrov listened with the attention of a student, asking questions that revealed sharp intelligence beneath his shattered arrogance. Together, they discovered that military discipline combined with civilian innovation created something neither world achieved alone. The 72-hour exercise pushed both to their limits. Mountain terrain at Fort Bragg offered every challenge: elevation changes, wind tunnels, temperature inversions that bent light and bullets in unpredictable ways. Their objective included multiple targets at distances ranging from 1,000 to 3,700 meters. The furthest shot would set a new facility record if achieved. But the real test was whether two people who'd started as enemies could function as a precision team. On day 3, exhausted and weather-beaten, they faced the ultimate challenge. 3,700 meters to target, with 25-mile-per-hour crosswinds and a temperature inversion creating optical illusions. The Snipex anti-material rifle, worth $50,000, represented the pinnacle of sniper technology. Even with perfect conditions, the shot pushed beyond reasonable probability. Petrov worked his spotting scope with newfound humility, calling wind readings and atmospheric data while Sophia input calculations. Their communication had evolved from forced cooperation to genuine partnership. The Pentagon observers gathered at the Range Operations Center, watching through high-powered optics and electronic monitoring. This shot would validate or destroy the experimental program. Failure meant traditional military training would remain isolated from civilian expertise. Success would open doorways that had been locked since the military's inception. Sophia spent 15 minutes in preparation, her software processing variables that standard military calculations couldn't touch. Petrov provided environmental readings with precision that surprised even him. He'd learned to see through her eyes, understanding that excellence required humility, not brutality. Then the wind shifted. A sudden gust that changed every calculation, requiring instant adjustment with no time for technology. Sophia's breathing stopped. 4.2 seconds of flight time meant the bullet would hit conditions that didn't exist when it left the barrel. She closed her eyes, feeling the wind the way her grandfather had taught her on Montana ridgelines. Instinct older than software, but this time Petrov was with her. 3 clicks left, he whispered. Trust me. She did. 2 clicks left, 1 click up, based on their combined instincts. She fired. The bullet's path traced an invisible arc across 2.3 miles of space, through crosswinds that should have thrown it off by meters, past the temperature inversion that bent light like water, 4.2 seconds of suspended possibility, then impact, center mass, a shot that redefined what human capability could achieve with proper tools, training, and trust. The operations center erupted. Pentagon officials immediately authorized program expansion. The experimental integration of civilian expertise would become official military doctrine. Petrov lowered his spotting scope with tears streaming down his face, not from shame or defeat, but from redemption. Maria would have thrived in this system, he said quietly, one that recognizes different types of excellence, one that builds instead of breaks. His transformation was complete. The hammer was dead. At 24, she stood 5'4" in combat boots, her blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun that somehow still looked civilian. While other candidates bore the sharp edges of military academies, she moved with the fluid grace of someone who'd learned to shoot not from drill sergeants, but from quiet mornings on a Montana ranch. Her grandfather, a Korean War veteran, had taught her that breathing was half the shot. By 22, she'd won 47 civilian competitions, numbers that meant nothing here. Numbers she'd been ordered to keep secret. The morning of her public failure had started like the others. 0500 hours wake-up, equipment inspection at 0600, live fire exercises by 0700. But everything had gone wrong from the first moment. In its place stood an instructor who understood that excellence came in forms he'd never imagined, and that his sister's failure had been the system's shame, not hers. The ride back to base passed in contemplative silence. Sophia had proven her point, but victory felt complex. She'd changed military training forever, opened doors for countless civilians who might serve their country through unconventional paths. But she'd also learned that changing systems meant healing the people those systems had wounded. Petrov would become the program's strongest advocate, using his conversion story to convince other hardline instructors. More importantly, he'd call Maria, telling her that her struggle had finally found meaning. What mission could possibly challenge her now? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected. The voice on the phone would offer Sophia something she never expected, and change everything once again. The secure phone rang during Sophia's graduation celebration. She stepped away from the congratulating crowd, finding privacy in an empty briefing room. The voice on the other end carried authority that transcended normal military channels. "Miss Chen, this is General Morrison, Special Operations Command. We've been monitoring your progress with great interest." The weight of those words settled over her like tactical gear. Special operations meant missions beyond conventional warfare, challenges that pushed human capability to breaking points. Within hours, Sophia found herself in a Pentagon sublevel she didn't know existed. Security checkpoints layered like concentric circles protecting state secrets. The briefing room held faces she recognized from news reports. Joint Chiefs Representation, CIA liaison officers, NSA technical specialists. Whatever they wanted, it wasn't standard military deployment. General Morrison entered with files marked beyond top secret. "We have a situation requiring your unique skill set, not just your marksmanship, but your ability to innovate under pressure. More importantly, your experience bridging military and civilian methodologies." The briefing revealed a nightmare scenario. An enemy sniper, trained by unknown forces, had been eliminating high-value targets across 3 continents. Intelligence suggested American assets were next. The killer operated at distances exceeding 4,000 meters, using techniques that baffled military analysts. Conventional sniper teams had failed to locate, much less neutralize, the threat. They needed someone who thought beyond military doctrine, someone who could match impossible with impossible. Sophia studied the target dossier with growing unease. The shots attributed to this sniper defied physics as she understood it. 4,100 meters through urban environments, 4,300 meters with multiple wind zones. Either the intelligence was wrong, or someone had developed shooting techniques beyond current knowledge. The mission would place her in hostile territory with experimental equipment, diplomatic consequences if she failed, and no guarantee of survival even if she succeeded. "I need my spotter," she said finally. General Morrison raised an eyebrow. "You have someone in mind?" Sophia nodded. "Captain Petrov. He knows my methods, understands the software, and won't hesitate under pressure." The room stirred with surprise. Requesting the instructor who'd tried to destroy her showed either remarkable forgiveness or strategic brilliance. Morrison approved with a knowing smile. Perhaps both qualities were why they'd chosen her. Petrov received his orders that evening. "Volunteer basis only," the commander stressed. "High risk, classified nature, partnering with the student he'd once humiliated." He signed without reading the rest. His transformation from prejudiced instructor to humble teammate was complete. But more than that, he saw this mission as a chance to honor his sister's memory by protecting the excellence she'd never been allowed to show. When he found Sophia preparing equipment in the armory, their conversation was brief but meaningful. "You could have requested anyone," he said. "Why me?" She looked up from the experimental rifle scope she was calibrating. "Because you understand the cost of failure in ways others don't, and because Maria deserves to have her brother save lives, not destroy careers." The team assembled over following days: elite special operations support, intelligence assets, technology that wouldn't be public for decades. The experimental sniper system incorporated Sophia's ballistic software into hardware form, creating real-time calculations that adjusted for variables human minds couldn't process fast enough. Yet even with cutting-edge equipment, the mission parameters seemed impossible. Urban environment meant civilians at risk. International jurisdiction meant diplomatic nightmares. One missed shot could spark incidents that echoed for generations. Before departure, Petrov made a call he'd avoided for 2 years. Maria answered on the 3rd ring. "Derek?" Her voice sounded stronger than he remembered. "I need to tell you something," he said, "about a student who changed everything, about how your struggle wasn't in vain." He told her Sophia's story, about the program changes, about civilians who would serve because barriers had fallen. Maria's tears came through the phone. "You're saying I helped change things, even though I failed?" Petrov's voice was firm. "You didn't fail. You revealed where the system needed to grow. Sophia Chen stands on ground you helped break." Their transport aircraft lifted off from a classified airfield as sunrise painted the horizon. Sophia sat beside Petrov, both studying mission briefs that grew more concerning with each page. The enemy sniper's pattern showed methodical brilliance, each shot positioned to create maximum chaos while maintaining perfect concealment. This wasn't just marksmanship but psychological warfare conducted through precision violence. Stopping them would require thinking not like a soldier, but like an artist of calculated destruction. "You changed things," Petrov said quietly, his words barely audible over engine noise. "Not just the program, the entire way we think about talent and training." Maria called me after we talked. First time in 2 years she sounded hopeful about her choice to serve, even though it ended differently than she planned. Sophia considered her response carefully. "Change was already needed. I just became the catalyst. Your sister was the foundation. Every civilian who succeeds in this program succeeds because of what she endured." The successful integration program had already attracted 37 civilian candidates in 2 months. Young women who saw Sophia's story as proof that excellence transcended traditional paths. Competition shooters, hunters, and athletes who possessed skills the military had ignored for decades. Petrov's screening process identified talent wherever it grew, looking past surface assumptions to find capability. His personal transformation from gatekeeper to gateway had become legendary among training staff. He'd even started a support group for military training washouts, helping them find other ways to serve. Media coverage painted Sophia as everything from feminist icon to military revolutionary. She'd refused all interviews, focusing instead on perfecting skills that might soon save lives. The public saw dramatic shooting demonstrations. They didn't see hours spent studying urban wind patterns, calculating bullet drift through temperature gradients, preparing for shots that shouldn't be possible. Fame was a distraction from the work that mattered. But more importantly, she knew her story was just one of many. Every barrier broken created space for others to excel. Now, flying toward classified coordinates with experimental equipment and untested theories, she wondered if breaking barriers had prepared her for breaking physics. The enemy sniper had advantages they didn't understand, training methods that produced impossible results, support networks that kept them hidden despite international manhunts. Defeating them would require more than marksmanship. It would demand innovation that made her civilian background not just useful, but essential. Captain Derek Petrov, the lead instructor they called the Hammer, had singled her out during the equipment check. Her rifle maintenance was substandard, he declared, her stance too relaxed, her civilian habits showing through every movement. The truth was, Petrov had hated her from the instant she'd arrived, a pretty blonde civilian taking a slot that should have gone to a real soldier. His younger sister had washed out of military training, destroyed by the pressure. Seeing Sophia succeed where his sister failed would mean admitting the system was flawed. Now, 3 hours later, she sat alone in the empty barracks. The humiliation burned deeper than any physical training could. For the first time in her life, someone had questioned her ability to shoot. Not her credentials or background, but the one thing she'd always known as truth. She could put lead on target, always had. As clouds swallowed their aircraft, she thought about the journey from that humiliating morning at Fort Bragg. From rookie to operative in 16 weeks. From mockery to respect through undeniable performance. From closed systems to integrated excellence. The experimental program had succeeded beyond Pentagon expectations. But this mission would test whether breaking institutional barriers had truly prepared them for breaking operational limits. The Loadmaster signaled final approach to their still classified destination. Somewhere below, an impossible sniper waited. Sophia secured the $50,000 rifle system that might soon attempt shots beyond current world records. Beside her, Petrov ran through spotting procedures with dedication that honored their transformed relationship. Whatever happened next would either validate the integration of civilian expertise or prove that some barriers existed for good reason. But one thing was certain. The shot that missed by 3.2 inches had changed everything. A deliberately failed shot that revealed a broken system. A moment of calculated imperfection that led to systematic revolution. Sometimes missing the target was the only way to hit what really mattered. What would you do if offered Sophia's mission? Share your thoughts below. The story of the rookie who revolutionized military training was just beginning. Her next shot might change more than training doctrine. It might redefine what humans could achieve when prejudice gave way to potential, when systems evolved to embrace excellence wherever it grew, when the impossible became inevitable through sheer determination and skill. The aircraft descended through clouds toward a destiny that would test every lesson learned, every barrier broken, and every shot that had brought them to this moment. Always would. The other candidates avoided her corner of the barracks like failure might be contagious. She heard their whispers through the thin walls. Diversity hire, PC recruitment gone wrong, the brass trying to fill quotas. Her hands shook as she pulled out her tablet, the tremor betraying the confidence she'd shown on the range. The screen flickered to life with custom ballistic software she'd developed over years of competition. The code represented thousands of hours of work, algorithms that calculated wind drift and bullet drop with precision most military systems couldn't match. But what good was technology when everyone already believed you'd failed? She ran the morning's calculations again. The crosswind had shifted 2.7 degrees between her breath and trigger pull. A microscopic change that her software had detected but she'd ignored, trying to shoot like they wanted instead of how she knew. The Pentagon had specifically told her to underperform initially, to test the system's reaction to struggling candidates. But living the failure felt different than planning it. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, heavy, measured, military. She closed the tablet quickly, sliding it under her pillow. Sergeant Williams appeared in the doorway, his weathered face unreadable. He'd been watching her all week with eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Unlike Petrov, Williams had served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He knew the difference between classroom perfect and combat effective. The silence stretched between them before he finally spoke. Your grandfather served in the Frozen Chosen. Not a question, a statement. She nodded, unsure where this was heading. Williams studied her for another moment, then turned to leave. At the doorway, he paused. Tomorrow's wind reading exercise. Don't try to be like them. Be better. After he left, Sophia sat in the growing darkness of the barracks, tears finally coming. The mission parameters had seemed simple in the Pentagon briefing. Play the struggling recruit. Test institutional bias. Gather data. But living through deliberate failure, watching her life's passion questioned, feeling the weight of prejudice, it was breaking something inside her. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, she'd stop apologizing for who she was. What Sophia did next would either prove them right or expose the biggest blind spot in military recruitment history. Captain Derek Petrov entered the briefing room at 0600 hours like a predator marking territory. 6'3", West Point graduate, 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. His crew cut was so precise you could measure regulations by it. At 32, he'd built his reputation on breaking weak candidates before they wasted military resources. The other instructors called him the Hammer. He wore the nickname like a medal. But beneath the surface, Petrov carried his own wounds. His sister Maria had entered military training with dreams of serving her country. The system had crushed her in 6 weeks. Depression, medical discharge, a life derailed. Every female candidate reminded him of her failure, and Sophia Chen, with her civilian background and natural grace, embodied everything he believed had stolen his sister's chance. 23 candidates sat at attention as Petrov's boots clicked across the concrete floor. His eyes found Sophia immediately, sitting in the 3rd row trying to disappear into her tactical gear. Yesterday's failure hung in the air between them like smoke from a misfired round. 3.2 inches. In his mind, it might as well have been 3 miles. Standards were standards. He'd been waiting for this moment since her arrival. Time to finish what her incompetence had started. Chen, his voice cut through the morning silence, stand up and explain to your fellow candidates why taxpayers are funding your vacation here. The room tensed. Even hardened military academy graduates knew when blood was in the water. Sophia rose slowly, shoulders square, meeting his gaze without flinching. Inside, her stomach churned. The Pentagon's mission required enduring this, but knowing it was planned didn't make it easier. Sir, I'm here to complete sniper training, sir.
Oh, Daisy here. Có người hỏi tôi rằng là tôi lấy ý tưởng video từ đâu. Great questions. Mình sẽ làm video chia sẻ về process sáng tạo nhé. Hãy thêm câu hỏi dưới phần comments và đừng quên subscribe để không bỏ lỡ Q&A video nha.